Your town can get a multi-billion-dollar AI data center without a single resident ever getting to vote on it. In rural Arkansas, farmland started quietly getting optioned and locked up under the name Willowbend Capital. Nobody local had heard of Willowbend Capital. That was the point. Later, reporting tied that entity to Google, a company worth $2 trillion, assembling land while wearing a Delaware shell company like the corporate equivalent of a fake mustache. The AI boom doesn't arrive in your town with a press release. It arrives incognito, in a rental car, under a name it made up on the way over. Now, one thing up front, so you know what this is. This isn't the emissions story. It's the land and billing story. It's the deal, how these things actually get built, the secret buyers, the tax breaks worth more than the jobs, and the bill that quietly lands on everyone else. It is less a pollution story than a heist story. And the twist at the end is that some towns have started catching it in the act. We'll keep it specific, keep our sources on screen, and stay mildly unimpressed throughout. Step 1 is the shell company. Google used bland Delaware entities like Willowbend Capital and Forgelite Ventures. Meta has bought land through glossy park branding like Red River Technology Park. Separately, big projects get spy movie code names. Project Red Hawk, Project Woolworth. OpenAI's mega site in Texas went by Stargate. Because nothing says we have nothing to hide like naming your data center after a wormhole. For an industry that insists this is just ordinary infrastructure, it assigns an awful lot of spy movie code names. None of it is identical, and none of it is illegal. But the effect is the same. A $2 trillion company introduces itself to a town of 4,000 people under a name that gives away nothing. So residents and landowners end up negotiating in the dark. Step 2. The paperwork. In multiple reported cases, the local officials who do know what's coming have signed non-disclosure agreements. The people you elected to represent you are, at the key moment, contractually forbidden from telling you what's about to be built next to your house. You elected them. The LLC gagged them. It's representative democracy, now with a confidentiality clause. And the company often doesn't buy the land outright. It takes an option, a quiet right, to buy later. That lets a developer control the field before any public fight is fully underway, and long before most residents know who they're really up against. Then comes the giveaway. To land these projects, states and counties compete to offer property tax abatements that can run 20 to 30 years. In 2025 alone, Virginia gave up an estimated $1.6 billion in tax revenue to data center breaks, up around 118% in a single year. And the jobs those breaks are buying? A hyperscale data center, a building the size of several football fields, typically runs on somewhere between 20 and 50 permanent employees. Kansas passed a law where a $250 million facility qualifies for incentives by promising just 20 jobs. You are handing a $1 trillion industry a 2-decade tax holiday for roughly the staff of a mid-sized restaurant. That's not an employer. It's a very expensive vending machine that occasionally needs a security guard. So, secret buyer, gagged officials, decades of no taxes, a handful of jobs. And we haven't even gotten to the part where you help pay the power bill. Quick thing, while the servers hum, if a video that puts the receipts on screen is the kind of thing you want more of, a like genuinely tells the algorithm to show this to more people in towns where this is happening. That's the whole ask. Back to the money. Here's the part that turns a local zoning fight into your problem, even if the nearest data center is 3 states away. And the question is not how much power AI needs, you've heard that one. The question is, who got billed? When a data center this big plugs in, the wires and substations to feed it cost money. And in a lot of places, that cost doesn't land on the data center. It's spread across everyone's bill. Across 7 states in one grid region, roughly $4.4 billion in new transmission costs in a single year got socialized onto all ratepayers. In Virginia, the utility dominion indicated that around 55% of $7.6 billion in planned upgrades, largely for data centers, would be paid by residential customers. The tech is theirs. A chunk of the tab is yours. It's the only cloud that shows up on your electric bill. And if you're wondering why residents don't just, vote it down, that's the cleverest part. A lot of this land is already zoned so that a data center is allowed by right. No rezoning vote, and often none of the big public showdown people assume they'll get. By the time the sign goes up, the key decision was made years ago, quietly, by people who thought light industrial meant a warehouse. Which brings us to the turn in this story. The reason it's worth your 8 minutes. Because towns figured out the playbook. And a bunch of them, all over the political map, started saying a word the industry did not budget for: no. First, honestly, the hard one. In Saline Township, Michigan, the local board did exactly what residents wanted. It rejected the data center rezoning. So the developer sued the township, arguing the no itself was illegal, exclusionary zoning. Facing the legal bill, the township settled, and the project moved ahead anyway. This is the version that doesn't make a triumphant thumbnail. A township board can say no and still be told the no didn't count. No jokes on this one, it's just what happened. But then there's the other version. In Cassville, Wisconsin, population under 1,000, residents voted 44-0 against a proposed $1 billion data center. Not close. Unanimous. In Festus, Missouri, the city council approved a $6 billion project. At the next election, all 4 incumbents who'd backed it lost their seats, and residents launched a recall drive and lawsuits for good measure. Turns out approving a $6 billion project your voters hate is, electorally speaking, a bold choice. It turns out, we found out who you really work for is a powerful campaign slogan. And here's the genuinely weird 2026 development. By 2026, this stopped being a left-right story. In some towns, it was conservative voters asking why 30 jobs deserved 30 years of giveaways to an outside corporation bulldozing farmland, standing next to Democrats worried about the water and the bills. In Pittsylvania County, Virginia, a data center and power plant mega campus got withdrawn after resistance from exactly that coalition. The same yard, 2 rival political signs, and 1 identical sign about the data center. The closest thing to national unity America produced all year. Dozens of states spent 2026 rethinking the tax breaks they'd been handing out like candy. The one thing uniting rural America turned out to be a windowless building full of somebody else's chatbots. So strip away the code names and the novelty checks, and here's the shape of it. The AI you use for free is being physically built in real places, on real farmland, paid for with tax breaks that dwarf the jobs, and with transmission costs that land on strangers' residential bills, while the people who live there are often the last to be told and the least asked. The machines aren't the villain here. The paperwork is. The whole strategy runs on you not reading it in time, which, to be fair, is also the business model of the entire internet. The good news is the trick only works once per town. The second time that blandly named LLC shows up asking about the empty field by the highway, somebody now knows to ask the only question that ever mattered: who's really buying and who's really paying? You weren't asked. The next town still could be. If you want the rest of these, the deals nobody's supposed to explain to you, subscribe, and we'll keep reading the fine print so you don't have to. See you in the next one.